All right, middle of the week, here we are, back with you for coronavirus inside the Arizona Numbers, where we walk you through the numbers here in Arizona, help you find information that you're interested in so that you can make the best choices for your life, maybe going to school, going to the gym, going to dinner. We don't want to make those decisions for you. We want you to make them, but we are here to help you find the very latest information. I'm seeing viewers already say they're joining us on here. Christoph, welcome, and we welcome all of you from right here in Arizona, and really people who are watching across the nation. We're focused on Arizona numbers, but you can apply some of these same concepts to your state and apply it to your lives as well. I'm Katie Rammel. Alongside me here, Garrett Archer. Garrett's at home again today. I'm at the station, as you can see. I always show everybody it's an empty newsroom right now. Everybody's working remotely and working from home. So let's dive right into the numbers. We have a lot to talk about today. And as always, if you have questions, post them in the comments. We can specifically help to find you the information that you're looking for. Some really big numbers we're passing today as far as the number of cases on the planet. Earlier this week, we were saying 14 million. We're already at 15 million. But let's dive right into the Arizona spreadsheet so that we can look at what the Arizona Department of Health is releasing to us today, Garrett.
Okay, so here we are at the summary page for the AZDHS. Today we hit a milestone with 150,000, over 150,000 confirmed cases throughout the entire pandemic. We are just under 3,000 deaths. Today, 1,900 new cases out of 6,300 diagnostic tests. That obviously is a very low number. That's about a 30% positive. And we did talk to the AZDHS this afternoon, and one of the commercial laboratories did not report in time for their data to be included on today's dashboard. So we will have these numbers tomorrow, and that will then we'll have some much larger numbers tomorrow. But right now, 6,300 tests, 8,000 in total antibody tests, and 56 deaths today. Like I said, we're just under 3,000 and just over 150,000 in total.
So is it safe for you think, Garrett, today to look at some of the percentages, or are those also still affected for folks who are looking at these numbers today?
So the percentage would be fine for 4.6. I think it stayed the same, maybe ticked up one. I have to check. But as far as the total percent positive tests, no, it's the ratio today. Whenever one of the commercial labs fails to report, not a good idea to look at the percent positive for that day, because a lot of the tests that are reporting are tests that are coming back from hospitals or other laboratories that don't report electronically. So because of that, you're going to get a higher number of percent positives because these negatives are not included. So you're essentially just getting one side of the equation with a partial side of the other equation, the denominator. And so now you've just got a higher number that's sort of inflated.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for explaining that to everybody. Michelle's asking, where's the proof of these numbers and figures? These are coming right from the state.
Yes, these are reported through the county health departments through a back-end system that they've been using for years. They've been using it for other things. It was reconfigured for COVID-19, but it's been used prior to this, to that. And then and some of the other data comes directly from the hospitals. So that is the proof that we have that the data is as accurate as possible. Not to mention, most of the people that are working on this data at the AZDHS, and like you said yesterday, these are highly degreed, Yale-trained epidemiologists, very meticulous people. They're going to make sure that this data is correct.
So once again, cases on the planet passing 14 million. In the U.S., we're just approaching that 4 million number. Here in Arizona, more than 150,000 cases. And then in Maricopa County, we passed that 100,000 case mark. And Garrett, as we've been tracking some of the counties around the U.S., obviously the population in a county varies. So it's worth noting, but it's remembering that population size varies. And it looks like we're still number 3rd on that list, but boy, we are close to Cook County. Now, for a frame of reference, Cook County has about 5 million people. Maricopa County has about 4.4 million people. So they are larger than us in population, but we're getting very close to that unfortunate second place position there.
Yes, as far as the raw number of cases, that is correct. I'm looking at as you were talking about that, I picked up a county map for. I'm going to stop sharing this and go to this that I found. This is usafacts.org. and it shows a county map of the per capita, so the per 100,000. And let me see if we can get a little closer here. Here you can see sort of what the counties look like. Here is Maricopa County. This is 98. There's that number. This is from yesterday, so it's just under 100,000. And its confirmed cases is 2206 per capita. And you can see, as we're talking about, there's Yuma County right there. This is a much harder hit area per capita, 4,500 per cases per capita. And you go to, like, say, Los Angeles County, obviously the largest county in the country, 1,600 cases per capita. So Maricopa is slightly above, say, Los Angeles County as far as a hard hit populous county as far as its per capita number.
This site gives us a really good visual. Do you know who puts this together? We'll keep this web address up for folks if they want to bookmark it and keep it as one of the places they stop into to see how we're doing across the country. This is a great map if you'd like to see other parts, maybe where you're from. We know people in Arizona generally have come from other places around the U.S., so this map is helpful for them as well.
USA Facts was put together years ago by Steve Ballmer, one of the late Steve Ballmer, one of the original founders of Microsoft, to basically have like this all-encompassing data repository for all things census and all of these other statistics that you may not find on the same page or are very difficult to find together. So they just kind of they poured money into it and then put all these statistics together, and obviously they're doing some COVID-19 stuff as well, and they always put together some decent visuals.
So Garrett, let me ask you, how do you like or dislike comparing this to censusreporter.org? That's another site that we've used a lot. This one seems a lot more visual, or that one just kind of drops in some numbers based on size and demographics and things like that.
Yeah, Census Reporter is one of the best sites for if you want to take, like, it's good for just a very quick rundown of what's happening on the census, and then also if you want to do have a simple way of downloading census figures, because one of the biggest problems of just, I know we're going off on a tangent here for a second, but the census website is it's very difficult for normal people, for most people, to operate unless you go there all the time. So Census Reporter is a great place to sort of download this data and look through it and make a map of it. USA Facts does all that for you, but puts it visually already, so you don't have to do that analysis.
Okay. Lindsay is asking, or rather stating 99% recovery rate, but that in fact is not the case that we're seeing across the U.S. at this point. And by recoveries, that varies widely. If you mean didn't pass away, that's a different statistic. In the U.S., 3.7% of the people who get COVID-19 lose their lives. And in Arizona, currently that number is at 2%. And we always remind folks that deaths lag in this. So
yeah.
Go ahead.
If I may address that really quick, I've seen that statistic, obviously, 99%. What people do when they say that is they're taking the confirmed cases by the departments of health and applying that to the population totals. And that's sort of taking apples with oranges. There's actually, in these, if you want to do a comparison with the total population, then you have to use modeling that includes what the estimates are of the total population of what COVID-19 looks out there outside of the confirmed cases. For example, we have situations where at least on that COVID projections, where they say that we have anywhere from 1.2 million to 800,000 cases in Arizona. So if you're going to do a recovery, I'm not saying it's necessarily incorrect, but it's just not correct applying it to the case numbers.
Absolutely. Thank you for addressing that. We get a lot of questions regarding that. Joyce writes, any idea how many are, I think she's meaning to say, are tested versus how many results come back? Seems like labs are falling way behind in processing. So Joyce is right there. We've been sort of tracking the days. Garrett's been putting a lot of this together behind the scenes to see how slow our test results are coming in here in Arizona. And yesterday, Garrett, we were tracking about a 13-day delay in tests. And really the concern was, is this keeping our test results safe? Is this kind of breaking down the tests? Are they keeping them frozen? Like the process behind all of this. Now you're saying it's about a 14-day delay based on the numbers we're getting in.
Yeah, so with today's numbers that came in, and when we say what the lag is, what we're calculating is how long it takes for the daily numbers to stabilize. So obviously when we report these, when we report 1,900 cases today, that doesn't mean that 1,900 cases occurred yesterday. What that means is they are reporting 1,900 cases, and those 1,900 cases are being filled in anywhere from 1 to 14 days. And at some point, the curve after 14 days, there are very little changes made to those dates. So that means that there's the department is much more confident in what happens after those 14 days. Prior to that 14 days, they're still filling in data. So they're not sure what those numbers are going to look like. They could go we could be looking at a peak day on one of those 14 days, and we just have to sort of wait to see what happens. As far as the test lag, I do have, I shared the screen for the Sonora Quest Laboratories. This is the best number we have. We have a pending number right there, 61,706 pending tests that Sonora Quest has not gotten through yet. Of course, we you know, with the former director of the Department of Health did say that, you know, these tests, they have to be put into a freezer or something, you know, very negative 80 Celsius or something like that, to make sure that these tests don't degrade, because as time goes on, if these tests degrade, then we might be getting a lot of false negatives. So we hope that they're, you know, while they're processing that backlog, that these tests are, you know, these tests are still in a vault somewhere and getting ready to process, and we won't be seeing a lot of false negatives on them.
All right. A lot more questions coming in. There's a few things I want to get to before we get to some of these questions. And one of them is those FEMA testing sites that we talked about yesterday. We saw very long lines weeks ago. And then yesterday we saw no lines. So the county really wants us to let everybody know that if you want to get a test, there is a site you should go to called Do I Need a COVID-19test.com. And producer Carrie's added that up on the screen right there. Garrett's sharing his screen so you can get a better look at what that looks like. So they have two sites set up, everybody. One at Maryville High School and the other at South Mountain Park. So you can go to either of those. Unfortunately, it is already shut down for today because it goes from 6 to 2. But go ahead and go over to that site and you can learn a little bit more, get registered, and sign up for this. Now, they're saying that it was so slow out there that just in the county briefing we just heard that people could just show up out there, and likely if it's not that busy, they will just take you. That's how slow it's been. But if you want to spare yourself being turned away in case there are long lines, simply sign up on this site, Do I Need a COVID-19test.com, and that will provide you with all the information you can to go get tested out there. Let's see. Sorry, your comments are going by so quick. I get ready to read them and they're gone. Danielle writes, does AZDHS report on the website when the information is not fully reported each day? Do they let us know that? I mean, we've looked at it so much we can tell when something's missing, because normally we'll see about 15,000 tests that are processed. And if we see a low day like this, lower than 10,000, we know that something probably didn't come through yet.
Yeah, they don't post it on the website. Sometimes they will post it on the every once in a while, post at the very, very top, top of the dashboard. They'll have something that say, oh, we didn't one of the commercial labs didn't report. However, their most often communication on this is through Twitter and possibly Facebook. I don't actually know if they do it on Facebook, but I see it every morning on if there is if there's a time when a lab doesn't report or something strange in the data, they will normally notify by Twitter. They didn't for today for some reason. It's not a huge deal that they didn't notify us, because like we said, we sort of can see the data and the tea leaves and say, oh, it's a Wednesday, we shouldn't be seeing 6,000 tests. So we sort of kind of understand what we're looking at. But they normally say something.
Yeah. Eaton writes, I like the models you do. They're better than the AZDHS site. Do you have them posted on a site? Garrett, you share a lot of these on your Twitter account. I don't think we've gone into any of them specifically yet today, but some of the other curves that you've done and you've put together for us that give our ABC 15 viewers a better understanding of how things look here in Arizona. Oftentimes you end up sharing those on Twitter.
Yeah, most of them are on Twitter. They'll show up on abc15.com when they're incorporated into a story, but most of them they're put on Twitter.
Yeah, that's a good place to find them. Okay, Ellis is asking, is there a news conference today? I think you're referring to the governor. I'm assuming that's who everybody wants to hear from about schools. So we have heard nothing today. So likely that is completely off for today, and we'll most likely hear from him tomorrow, usually around 3 o'clock. So I know a lot of people are waiting on that information. Trent writes, what is the recovery number? Trent, we get asked this every day, and we're happy to answer it for you. It's the definition of recovery varies from person to person, from age to age. So there's no set agreed upon definition of what that looks like. The very best number we have to go on is a hospital discharge number, which is at 18,863. And Trent, you can find that at any time that you like on covidtracking.com. That's the best number we have at this point, because what it looks like for a 5-year-old to recover from COVID is very different than it would look like a 55-year-old to recover, or an 85-year-old. And then also what that recovery looks like. Does it mean that you're getting back to work? Does it mean that you can do the things you used to be able to do? Does it mean that you have been released from the hospital? What if you never went to the hospital? All of those things. So we need an agreed upon definition before we feel comfortable giving you a set number. But that's the best we have right now. So hopefully that helps.
So I'm going to give you an update on this, Katie, because you may not know. I actually did some work on this today. And while you are entirely correct about the recovery number, and that the difficulties in coming to a definition for the recovery, we can make some estimates on the active/inactive that it is based on, and this is basically for transmission purposes. What are the actual active cases out there rather than the inactive cases, the cases that are likely past the time of transmission? So I did some work on this today. I looked at basically cases over time minus death, and I have a high estimate and a low estimate based on cases that may be over 14 days and cases that are over 28 days. So what I came up with.
Because Garrett, we kind of know how long on average people are really, really fighting this. Okay, what did you put together? This is great.
So what we have is cases aged over 14 days. If that would be a high estimate, it's likely not that high, but that's about 127,000 cases that are aged over 14 days. As far as aged over 28 days, which is obviously the case, the case is now a month old, minus deaths, that's 72,000, but 71,906 is the actual number. So when you look at those numbers, again, these are not considered recoveries, but as far as the ability to transmit the virus at that point, likely after 27 days, those 72,000 cases on the curve are likely no longer able to transmit the virus at that point. It does not mean that they are recovered, but it just means that they're sort of an archived case at this point.
Yeah, so you are literally taking that 150,000 case number from Arizona and then subtracting all those groups out of it to try to get folks the closest number to this.
Yeah, so we have probably about 70,000 active cases.
Wow.
That's approximately about 70,000.
Debbie's writing what I'm thinking. You rock, Garrett. This is what we've been trying to figure out. Exactly. Are you putting this into a graph, or are you just starting to crunch some of these numbers to get us closer to?
I spent about 2 hours trying to put this into a graph today, and my graph was saying naughty things to me. So I still have some work to get it done. It's kind of fighting me. So I have to fix it. It's almost done. I'm almost ready. Unfortunately, I'm not ready today because it was just being a jerk.
Not fit for air. That's fine. We'll get to it. Brant's asking, can you explain the R naught numbers? Let's see, Brant, I looked at it today. I think it was at 0.97, Garrett, but this is, of course, only affected by cases, not affected by hospitalizations or deaths. It's basically how fast it's being transmitted within our community. So a 1 would be we want to be below a 1, and we were above it for some time. I also was trying to see on that site, Garrett, if there were any other states that joined us. Let's see, we've got Maine.
I've got it pulled up now so we can look at it.
Great.
Okay, so let's see if there anyone new. Yeah, it looks like we do have a couple newcomers to the green category. I don't remember New Mexico being in there, so it seems that New Mexico is now under 1. Oregon, I believe, was in there. Oklahoma, Ohio, North Carolina, here we are, and then Delaware, Connecticut, Washington, South Dakota, Utah, and Maine. And when you look at these numbers, of course, you really want to pay attention to the error bars. Let me darken my screen really quick so it's a little easier to see. Here we are. So as you can see right there, the range is 0.76 to 1.14. That's kind of where, as you know, the best guess that this estimate is it could be anywhere between 1.14 to 0.76.
Garrett, we have a question coming in that says, Teresa is asking, what is a case? Define case. So case is someone infected and testing positive. for COVID-19. Now we deduplicate the cases here. So if you went and got 100 tests and they're positive, you're going to count for the one person with COVID. So I hope that helps too.
Yes, yes. And then I saw someone ask something about how can we know what these, when I put out those active case numbers, that some of these cases are coming in 14 days late. Well, the way that the curve works is I'm even if that test is 14 days late, I'm still accounting for that as a possible inactive case. If a case is added to the bar chart, to the chart after 15 days, it's still, that test was still administered 15 days ago. So it's still likely that that positive case is an inactive case at this point, or it could be. So, you know, I'm taking the actual date of occurrence, not the date it was reported.
So let's talk about, we're getting a couple questions about zip codes coming in, and I want to get to that. Let me scroll back and see if I can get one of them. Oh, Julie, hi, can you tell me if the zip code page is people who live in that zip code or the test performed in that zip code? Really good question. First, let's show where the zip code map is.
Yes.
I used to have
actually good news on the zip code map. They changed it today. They updated it, which is nice. They do it about once a month.
Yeah,
so,
for those who are new to us here, we've been joining you each afternoon for the summer now. And one of the complaints we would have on the zip code map is that it didn't really give a degree of much anymore because every area was shaded in the same color. So you couldn't, you didn't have a difference in color and you couldn't really tell where your area stands. Garrett's logging on to the Arizona Department of Health site, clicking on that zip code line that takes you into a map right there on the page. Used to take you to a separate site. Garrett, we kind of complained and moaned about that on here, and then they made it in the same site. We kind of complained and moaned about the color scheme on here, and it looks like now they've also changed that. So we have to say a huge thank you.
This is a huge thank you to them. I mean, having this at 1,000 as the peak color is much better than, I think it was 250 or 500 at the time, and that's just too low for what's going on in Maricopa County, for example. So now we're at least getting a better idea of which some zip codes are affected. And to answer the actual question, it is not where the test was administered unless it was at a hospital, but eventually it's going to always reflect the residents. It will eventually get there. Sometimes it's put in initially as the hospital, and then it will shift out to the actual residential zip code. So here we are. You can see that the hardest hit areas of Phoenix, sort of in the southwestern portion of the state, of the county, excuse me. These are two of the harder hit zip codes. 85037 is 2002. This area of Glendale right here, as you can see, has been hit really hard. And then you can see it sort of, goes into the middle part of Phoenix and then sort of starts to peter out as you get into some of the suburbs.
So we're noting, as we mentioned a little bit earlier when we were talking about counties across the country, obviously zip codes have different size populations as well. So look at this for your own zip code, or maybe where you work if you're working outside of the home right now, or whatever zip code pertains to you. But just remember that these are different populations as well within that area. I love it, Garrett. I'm glad they updated that map. Makes it a little bit more helpful. Let's see here. Some more questions coming in that I want to get to. I know so many people are asking about schools. Let me tell you this. You can find the latest information that we have on the school plans on our website right now. Our reporters, our teams here have put together this awesome interactive map. So you can just hover over that area and click on the school district that applies to you or pertains to you. It's abc15.com/schools. We just had more schools last night move their in-person start date back to in October. For those of you watching from across the U.S., we actually have a fall break here in Arizona. It's sometimes 2 weeks, sometimes a week off in October, and several school districts have just decided we're going to start in person after that date. They're still starting in 2 weeks at home, many of them, but we just had a couple more add to that list. So worth checking if you want to check it out. Ray is asking for a specific zip code in there. So all you have to do is type that zip code number in on the page, Ray, and you'll be able to see it. So go to AZDHS and you'll be able to enter your zip code right there. Anita writes, how many people who tested positive had to be hospitalized? In Maricopa County, that's about 4%, isn't it, Garrett?
I believe so. I'm trying to look at that number right now, but I don't have.
That was that last check, and I want to let Anita know that you can find that on the county health department website. I think on the first page that you open it, there's a chart there, Anita, that'll show you the number.
Yes,
1%.
Yep.
4% in the hospital, 1% in ICU?
1%. And just to understand though, the lag on hospitalizations is about 21 days. So that doesn't mean that number is significantly higher, but it does mean that, when you're looking at that 4%, don't think of that as, oh, this is 2 days number. Realistically, we don't even know what that number looks like through the rest of July at this point. We're still waiting for that number to be updated.
Yeah. Jake is saying, folks, please notice they're cherry picking the questions that fit their agenda. Jake, we would love to get to everybody's question. If you have a specific one, post it on here and we'll teach you where to find that on a website. We've been staring at these websites for a long time and we can help you find that information that you're hungry for, that you're looking for. So we're happy to help. Letitia asks, how many are recovering at home? Well, quite a few. If you look at those numbers, so 4% are hospitalized, we have to assume that the rest are working on healing at home. Would that be right, Garrett?
Yeah, we have. So if you look at, I'll show you sort of where you might be able to find that. And it's, again, this is a proxy number. We don't actually know, like, this is a recovery. Again, it's difficult to talk about, but we can say with some assertion what is in the hospital and what's not. So if you go to hospitalizations on the dashboard, you can see there's this number. It's not labeled very well. It says percent of COVID-19 cases with missing, it's hard to see, sorry, missing hospitalization status, 63. And a lot of people will look at it and say, look, 63% they're missing their hospitalization status. Well, that also means that most of those people are not ever going to be in the hospital. So 95,474 positive cases have not been admitted to the hospital. And that number sort of has stayed and actually has increased. That 63% has increased over time. And that's a function of both the fact that there's about a 20-day lag on the hospitals, but also simply because the majority of those do not need to go to the hospital.
Yeah. Sebastian writes something interesting. I tested positive in May and never received a call to see if I had recovered from AZDHS. How are they tracking recovered people? That's kind of what we were stressing. They're not tracking it at this point. They're trying to track the disease at this point and get people protected and help people stay healthy. So this is brand new to everybody, a brand new pandemic that we're all experiencing and all living through. So we're not going to call you.
And Sebastian's a great example as to why it's, we look at that hospital discharge number of the 18,000 and we know, even though that's our best sort of hard number, we know for a fact, it's obvious that is a very low number for recoveries. I mean, when we look at other recoveries in other counties and other places that post recoveries, the recovery number is anywhere at this point from 40% of the active cases to 60% or more of the active cases. So we know that if anything, if you really want to just make a very ballpark estimate, it's going to be approximately half the cases are already in inactive status.
Right. And Sebastian, in all of this, so glad you're doing better. So glad you're recovering. I'm assuming you are from your comment on there. So hopefully no one else was infected in your friends or family. Lee writes, you guys never mention us here in Flagstaff. How's Coconino County looking? Lee, let's get you those answers right now. And thank you, by the way. Lee joins us. I see his name come past often on here. So we are happy to help you check and see how Coconino County is.
I will. Yeah, so let me take you to Coconino County here. So Coconino County actually has its own dashboard. So if you go to coconino.az.gov/COVID-19, that has all the information for Coconino County. I'll say that one more time, coconino.az.gov/COVID-19. And you come down to, there's this little site here, dashboard data has moved to its own page. You can click on that and it will show you Coconino County's dashboard. And Coconino County is actually one of the counties that do produce a recovery number. So we have right here 2640 confirmed cases and we have 1536 have recovered. And they also give their definition. A confirmed case is considered recovered if they have not passed away 28 days from the reported date of illness. So, and here you can see all this information on what their zip codes look like, what their cases by age, and also the hospitalizations, ethnicity numbers, and then some of the high-risk population numbers. So Coconino has a very great dashboard. I go to it every day to pick up their numbers, and I'm very thankful how good their dashboard is.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if other counties kind of note who work the best to get the answers out there fast, and that other counties could learn from it. Speaking of learning from other places, Greg Ring, hi Greg, by the way. I actually know Greg, so it's fun when I see names I know on here. Greg writes, it's crazy not to know the recovery numbers. Lubbock, Texas has it nailed down. We are seeing some recovery numbers across the US. Have you seen anywhere, Garrett, that sticks out in your mind that maybe is a place that Arizona could learn from and try to adapt some of these things? We hate to think we'll ever go through this again, but even on a smaller scale, it might be helpful.
Yeah, to be completely honest, although I have seen these recovery numbers, really the important part of when you look at a recovery number is to know the methodology. Mm-hmm. So without knowing the methodology, I mean, I see he says Lubbock, Texas. I don't know what the methodology they're using for recovery, so I just don't know. I mean, that's one of the reasons why Johns Hopkins University, and COVID tracking, they want to have some sort of recovery number, and the only thing that Arizona gives that is a hard number is these hospital discharges. Some of the other counties, and as you saw with just Coconino County and some of the other states, say, look, we have a degree of confidence that these are inactive after 28 days or whatever the number is, and so they post it as a recovery number. That's why that's why I have that range of anywhere from 14 days to 28 days. It's likely we got about 60,000 active cases right now.
Yeah, looking into the methodology, always so important in any of these things. Greg, thanks for the comment and the question. Hello from London. Oh my gosh. Hello. I'm so thankful you're joining us on here. We are always focused on the Arizona numbers, but boy, some of my family is overseas, and we try to FaceTime and catch up and sort of share stories. I remember thinking that they were on lockdown for such a long time. Every time I spoke to my aunt and uncle, they were still on lockdown. And now I use that in the back of my brain to remember, how long it takes to get through something like this, and remember to have the stamina and mental capacity to make it through this, especially with kids at home. It gets a little crazy. Garrett, I know you understand. I know you understand that part as well. We appreciate all the comments coming in. Let's see if we can get to a few more.
I do see one, Amber Jacobs, saying, how bad is AZ lag compared to other states? I do not know the answer to that, but what I can tell you is just a cursory Google search of COVID-19 test lag. You will see that we are not the only state that is that is experiencing a lag. So far, I've seen that it appears that our number of test lag is significantly larger than some of these others. I think Virginia has a 13,000. Massachusetts has a test lag. So there is a backlog all across the country. I haven't done the work for it, but you could just see that there's a backlog. So while I don't know what it is compared to other states, what I can tell you is that the backlog is not unique to Arizona.
Mark asking, what does it mean with PCR that don't report the negatives? Does that mean the negative number would be higher and thus us having a lower positive percentage rate? You have a whole graph that kind of shows which places use it.
It's actually opposite. So what it is if they're not reporting negatives, it's pushing up the positive and not changing the number of negatives. So it actually increases the percent positive of our daily reports. So that's one of the reasons why I'm just going to bring something really quick in. One of the best sort of areas, and you still have this problem, but it's at least washed out a bit, is if you go back to the AZDHS dashboard.
And Garrett, you're saying washed out. Is that washed out because the numbers are getting so big that it doesn't matter as much? Or
when you look at it on a weekly or daily basis, the number of negatives not reported it's a little less impactful than you look at the entire thing.
Okay.
So you look at this week by week, you can sort of see it just gives you a better idea of where we are. July 5th, 19% of diagnostic tests came back. Right now we're at 16%. When you account for the negatives in here, these numbers are likely about 3 to 4 points lower. So this would be closer to 16, 15, and this one would be closer to 12%. It just depends. Unfortunately, it just depends. But you can sort of at least track, the growth in the percent positive and then the decrease in the percent positive.
Really good question from Micah there. Greg's writing again. I'm in Flagstaff and Phoenix, by the way. Katie, thank you for remembering me. Of course, Greg. My gosh. Thank you for joining us on here. Thanks for taking some time out of your day to be a part of this with us. We just we just hope to help people better understand the numbers here in Arizona. As I always say, and Greg knows me too, I'm not trying to make decisions for your life. You know your family and your family's health the best. We just want to dive into these numbers, help you better understand them so that you maybe can develop your own personal metrics that you say, hey, if this gets to 5% or this gets to 30% or whatever percentage or number or metric that looks like to you in your personal life, so you can make the best decision. So that's why Garrett and I are on here every day. Christoph saying, my 5-year-old says hi. Well, we want to say hi to your 5-year-old because usually before Garrett and I join all of you on here, we have, when I'm at home and he's always at home, we have our kids running around behind and we have to tell them to get out of the room so that we can join all of you on here to help you with these numbers. So thank you to all of you who are joining us on here. All right, this day is flying by. We just have a matter of minutes left, and then honestly, I'm here at the station today because it's a Wednesday switch of shifts, and I'm going to be anchoring at 4 o'clock, and Faye's going to be anchoring the 5 and 6 for me. So we kind of trade our time. So I'll have to get ready to start doing that. Oh, Micah saying, following Garrett on Twitter every morning. Thanks for the info, guys. Micah, thanks for joining us on here. We're happy to help you find this info. So let's see. Jay writes, Garrett, thanks for sharing the R0 number on Twitter. Is that number legit or is it skewed somehow? Well, there's a couple of places you can look it up. The one we share a lot is rt.live. It's so simple to look at that one. That's kind of why we choose it. And it's also the one that the governor's been sharing in his news conferences. So when he first started talking about this, and we wanted to be sure to highlight it more because we know it's a number on his radar. We know that he's making decisions about your life and that you'd want to track that as well. So Garrett, it's related to cases.
Yeah, and what I can tell Jay is, and Jay and I interact on Twitter a lot, so I do appreciate him coming in and asking this question. What I can tell you is that it typically would be a decent estimate, although the one kind of sort of caveat and note on this is that the test backlog that we're experiencing right now can have a severe impact on the RT estimate. So that's why when we show the RT estimate, and I'll see if I can just pull it up really quick one more time.
And as you pull it up, the number it gives, it's a 95% confident that that's the number where we are. But remember that whole green bar, or if we're in the red bar is the range that we could be in. So it's a pretty wide range.
Yeah, and that confidence, when that's a statistical terminology, that 95% confidence, and it's the data. We are 95% confident that this is the right estimate if the data is good. So that's why I'm talking about the backlog could be impacting this number. So we just don't know. Right now, it's been following this track. Once we get through the backlog, I would sort of look at this R0 estimate and say, okay, I'm personally a little more confident on this number, but that's why, as you said, Katie, the range is so important. 0.76 to 1.14. That's sort of where they think we are in the range.
Let's see. Jeannie is asking about the deaths today. Jeannie, we might not have said this at the beginning. I'm not sure if we did. 56 was the number that came in earlier today. 43 of those were in Maricopa County. That's just for Arizona, Jeannie. Obviously, we always stress Arizona numbers, but that brings our total closer to 3,000. And as we say that, 2,974, we remember that these are real lives. These are friends and brothers and sisters and cousins and grandparents, and that this is 3,000 families affected here by these numbers. So tragic all the way around. Let's see. Stephanie's asking, is there any news out there saying there is a time when timeframes for tests will catch up? So, boy, we're hoping they'll catch up quickly, but we don't have a time frame at this point.
No, we need to see more tests being posted every day. That's really what it comes down to.
Yep, we're trying to crank through them. Amy writes, can you remind us where to find the stats of deaths by high risk versus no known risk? Oh, Amy, that's a really good question, and we can help you with that. What do you think, Garrett? Go to the county site or Arizona?
Yeah, this is one of those questions that we have to answer with Maricopa County's dashboard. They're the ones who give us the best data on this. And even though some of the other counties do give us this information, it's just Maricopa County is so massive. It just it's essentially a state in its own right in some ways. So we go to their dashboard and we can go over here to risk factors as it's rendering. We've shown this before, how there needs to be a line right here between the two. You look at these, you look at died right here, and so 51% of those who have died in Maricopa County have had at least one chronic medical condition, and 84% of those who have died in Maricopa County have had at least one medical condition or are over the age of 65.
Yeah. So show us that line where I always suggest that this site be separated, but it's
you sort of have to separate it right there.
Right.
These will add up to 100%. These will not. So you kind of have to split these out yourself.
Yeah. So hopefully that, those will total up to 100, those first 4 lines. I always think it'd be better on a separate page because when I first looked at it, I'm like, wait, I'm having to redo the math on this, but that's how it separates. Really good question. So thank you for that. And that's where you can find it on the county site. Anita's asking a question that we've received a lot this week, and Anita, we're happy to answer it for you. If the president is not releasing CDC stats on cases, how are you guys keeping track? We're getting these right from the state. So I always say if it's the game of telephone and everybody's reporting to each other, we're sitting right there at that first spot and getting it right from the state. So although that can be concerning in its own way, this we're getting it straight from the source, Anita. So hopefully that explains that. We're happy to answer that because we get that question a lot. Oh, Amy's saying thank you for answering her question. Amy, you're very welcome. Thanks for saying so. Glad that we can help you find this information on there. Let's see, running up on time here, Garrett. Any other things that you wanted to note? I do want to note that website once again. Do I need a COVID-19 test.com? The county is asking us to remind you of these FEMA sites out there. The sites have been really empty, and it's a chance to go get tested. They have them at Murrayville High School and also at South Mountain Park. Now, testing is done for the day. They do that in the cooler morning hours until about 2 o'clock. They would like you to sign up ahead of time, but if you can't get over there, they said if it's not slammed, they'll be sure to somehow try to work you into the lines out there. All right.
The only other, the last sort of numbers I would just go over is just to show that we sort of had a stop on our downward trend for one day on the COVID-19 hospitalizations. As you can see, we've had increases in every metric. But they're very slight increases, and this is why we pay attention to the averages over time, because when you look at this data, it can be noisy. One day does not make a trend. So while we do have increases, that doesn't necessarily mean that things are getting worse. We have to wait a couple days and see what happens.
So we had about 5 days of stepping down on some of those COVID-19 hospital-specific metrics.
Yeah, we had 5 days of step downs, and then we had one increase today. Slight increase. But we don't know what's going to happen the rest of the week. So we just have to keep our eye on it and see if this is a reverse in trend, or if it's just a little small hiccup and it'll start going down. I mean, obviously there's still active cases and going out there. So, that number can fluctuate.
Yeah. All right. I think that might sort of wrap things up for the day, Garrett, unless there's anything else you wanted to add there. Remember the very latest stories that we've worked on and information on coronavirus in Arizona can be found at abc15.com/coronavirus. And of course, our newscasts at 4, 5, 6, and 10 p.m. will have the very latest as well. You can find Garrett, as you mentioned. You've made some new friends on Twitter from folks that have joined us here and then made their way over to join us on Twitter as well. Garrett's at Garrett_Archer, and mine is at Katie Rammel. And also Facebook is an easy place to find me, since many of you are on Facebook right now watching us, and that's facebook.com/news from Katie. So let's see, that would probably wrap it up for us today. Garrett, thank you. Good information today. A lot of good. I thought maybe when we had a delayed reporting site that we might have a little less to talk about, but not the case. We have so many good questions from our viewers on here, and we appreciate every single one of you that makes us a part of your day. And we will see you back here tomorrow, hopefully right before a news conference from the governor, because I know so many people are waiting on that. As soon as we hear news of an announcement of a news conference, we will of course pass it on to you on all of your favorite social media sites. And that does it for us today. Garrett, we'll see you here tomorrow.
Of course.